Good evening, everyone. Judge Deakins is not available tonight. He asked me to sit in here for him. And at this point, we want to call the Finance and Budget Committee meeting to order. First, we want to stand for the prayer and the pledge. J.P. Colger has offered to lead us in that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I've invited Pastor Monique Jones from the historic St. James Missionary Baptist Church to do that honor tonight. And she's right there. Thank you.
Very good.
If you'll bow with me. Dear Lord, we come here tonight, Lord, together as one county, as one union, under your strength, Lord, to help us. Grant us the strength to work together harmoniously, respect diverse perspectives, and striving for the common good. Help us to be mindful of the needs and aspirations of all those we serve, and may our actions be just and fair. May our decisions tonight be marked by open-mindedness, empathy, and a genuine desire to improve the lives of our constituents in Washington County. Bless our city, bless our county with peace, love, and diversity. Lord, we ask you for a special blessing of our leaders here and the ones absent, the one over our city, our county, and our country. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
At this point, we want to adopt the agenda, but first we want to ask if any JPs have a recommendation or suggestion for any changes to the agenda. Okay, we have a motion by J.P. Lyons to adopt the agenda as it's stated, and a second by J.P. Simons. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Seeing none, the agenda will be adopted as it is stated. First on the agenda, we want to go to our reports. Treasurer Hill, I don't think, is available this evening. He is first on the agenda. We do have his report, and the details are in the packet. So if that would be adequate for those on the committee, we'll proceed with that in place. The next item is employee insurance report by Charles Angel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, if you don't mind, I'll start with the cash flow, which is the color-coordinated spreadsheet. Our total cost this month was $487,745. That represents our third lowest total cost of the year. So even though that is a staggering amount of money, that is our third lowest output. So that's always a good thing. We see that in the summertime. Sometimes those costs will dip because people try not to have procedures when they're doing their vacations, things like that. So not abnormal. What I like to point out down at the bottom of the boxes that show 2022 and 2023, the average monthly total plan cost per employee, we're still down about $23 per employee per month. So that's a good sign. We're actually spending less per employee. If you see that the total spend is up, the reason for that is we have more employees this year than we had last year. Our monthly average was 530 employees last year. It's 545 this year. So even though our spend per employee is lower, our total spend is higher because we have more employees on the plan. Skipping to the balance sheet over here, our beginning balance was a little over $3.4 million, and we're down just under $3.3 million. Nothing to be concerned about. We fluctuated for several years now between 3.1 and 3.4, so definitely happy with that. We believe next month or potentially in November, but probably next month, we'll get another pharmaceutical rebate, which should help us eat up most of the negative that we are for the year. Any questions for me?
Are there any questions at this point? J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one quick question. Are any rebates that you all get, are they pretty timely, or is it something that we have to wait a period of 9 months?
Well, those always do run a little bit behind.
Okay, they
from
do.
From the pharmaceutical carriers, but traditionally, because we've been self-funded for quite some time, we're seeing those rebates come in every other month on average. Those
That's
come in,
not
and
bad.
they're actually listed on the cash flow here, and you'll see them on the fourth column from the right under RX rebates. They
Other
have
than-
actually started to speed up with this new contract. We did see in the second round of rebates, we got the new contractual amount. So they're starting to speed up, but they're never month of or anything like that, unfortunately, Justice Ecke.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions at this time? Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Comptroller Story has a report for us.
Good evening, everyone. The first report I'll look at is the statement of operations for the month of August. We're 8 months through the year, so that's on an average 67% actual to used would be an average, a rule of thumb. If you look at line 1, column K, you'll see that 67%. If we paid everything within 30 days after that, line 2, column J, we'd be at about 75%. And if you look down on lines 4 with the road fund, you'll see that they are right at the 67%, and everyone else is below that. So we're in good shape with all of those. The road, obviously, where the summer months are going to be pushing that percentage because of the activity with the summer weather. So 67% is right in line with 8 months of activity. And if you look over in column J, you'll see that no one is at the 75% level. Road is at 72%. So all in all, everything is looking in good shape from the situation of the statement of operations. The only thing that I noticed on page 2, you'll see in line 66 in column K that the fire department's is at 75%. Now, the fire department where we subsidize the county fire departments, normally that should be right in line with the 67%. But you notice that it's a little higher than that. I looked into that. We pay those amounts to the fire departments on a quarterly basis, not a monthly basis. So we paid for July, August, and September in August. So in effect, that's why that's riding a little high relative to the number of months in the year. So that's just an indication to show you that 8 months, 67% is kind of a rule of thumb, but there are some obvious situations in this case where we're paying for an extra month up front because we pay toward the front end of that calendar quarter. So other than that, everything looks in good shape to me, and I'll entertain any questions with regard to this report if anyone has any.
Questions from the committee?
I'll now turn to the unappropriated reserve balance report. As you those of you who have been here for over a year recognize every quarter we de-appropriate those funds that are not spent in the full-time salaries account. So the best thing about this report this month, is on the second page at the very bottom of the report. I did a little memo summary of all of the amounts that were returned to the various unappropriated reserve accounts, and it was $1.934 million. So this is one of those nice months where we can see that all of our directors and other officials are managing well such that we have funds to return to the unappropriated reserve accounts. Yes, ma'am. That was page 2. There's only 2 pages in the report, unappropriated reserve. That was the bulk of the activity of last month for ordinances that were either appropriating unappropriated reserves or adding back in, and that's in column G. If you look down through there, you'll see the various black text items that are adding back in to the unappropriated reserve accounts. Other than that, everything looked in good order. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Other questions?
One other thing that I might call to your attention is up in the first 11 rows of the report, is that over in column M, line 4, we have 52% unappropriated reserves remaining in the general fund, which is nice in the fact that we're already over halfway through the year. If you look in column N, first 11 rows, you'll see that for the major funds, general, road, and jail funds, we have 33% of unappropriated reserves are being taken up by those 3 major funds. About 30% is the next line item there at cell 8, N8. And then we have 37% is our general reserve fund, which has not been significantly used at all this year. If anything, it's actually had an add back from our de-appropriations. So we've got about a third, and that looks in good shape to me. So I'm pleased to especially make a report like this. Very pleased with all of our managers seeking to stay within the budget restrictions that we have, and even beating that in many cases. So I'm very pleased to make this report today.
Other questions at this time? Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate it. Now we'll move on to the new business portion of our agenda for this evening. You can see that item number 7 says an ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the amount of $178,208.88. Do we have a motion concerning this ordinance? J.P. Lyons?
Thank you. Make a motion, we pass this to the full quorum court to do pass recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second by J.P. Dean. Is there any discussion concerning this ordinance at this time? Any questions, perhaps? J.P. Coger?
Thank you very much, Chair. My question would be, is this money just for this year, for special events for this year? Because it seems like last time we had a large amount like this, and it was for an extended period of time. Is that correct? I'm just curious if it's just this year.
The Walmart shareholders, so it ain't the full year, it's just the quarter. So we'll have more for throughout the rest of this year. We'll have football games and stuff like that, but the biggest portion of this is the Walmart shareholders
Okay, thank you.
reimbursement.
Other questions? Are there any public comments to be made concerning this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll ask the committee for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, we'll pass this to the quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Agenda item 8, an ordinance anticipating additional revenue in the amount of $13,506 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund. Do we have a motion concerning this agenda item? Okay, we have a motion from J.P. Ricker, a second from J.P. Lyons. Is there discussion concerning this or questions at this time? Seeing none, do we have any public comment concerning this particular ordinance? Seeing none, we'll put this to a vote of the committee. All in favor of passing this on to the quorum court meeting, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 9, an ordinance amending the county attorney budget for 2023. Councilor Lester, you may want to speak to this briefly before we proceed.
As I think I've stated at some meetings before, we're seeing an increase in litigation. We've got 2 appeals, one that we've just started, one that we will be starting soon. And so as such, this was not something that was budgeted for this year. And so we're requesting the funds to see those appeals through. And that's what this ordinance is for the increased cost in litigation this year.
Okay, at this point, we would entertain a motion concerning this ordinance. Okay, we have a motion from J.P. Pond and a second from J.P. Dennis. Is there any discussion or questions at this point? You will have to forgive me, I'm still learning the buttons to press here. J.P. Koger?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Mr. Lester, I assume that these are the Koger versus Deacons and Koger versus Woods cases that you're talking about appealing?
That's correct.
That's correct, okay. And since I'm a party to those, and as our 2 JPs here are a party to one of those other suits, I will not be voting because I will abstain because of my involvement in those 2 cases. But I wanted to ask, how did you advertise for attorneys to handle the appeal? Did you put out bids?
Well, first off, I don't know that that's a discussion to have here, but that's okay. Attorneys are not something that you bid out. They're exempt from bidding. They're not just, let me rephrase that. They're not just exempt from bidding, they're excluded from bidding. There are certain areas where you are not even, it's not that you don't have to, it's that you cannot. And attorney services is one of those. So no, there was no bids.
Thank you for explaining that, because I didn't understand that. I thought that professional services had comparative bidding requirements, so that's not correct?
No, there's no bidding requirements, no.
Okay. How did you settle on the attorneys that you got then? I mean, as opposed to maybe...
At this point, I think that's irrelevant. I'm not going to answer that question because the judge gets to enter into those. The legislative body, you guys are the legislative branch, you cannot enter into contracts. And so to sit here and ask these questions, I think, is uncalled for. But the judge has the ability to enter into contracts as he sees fit, and this is the contract he entered into.
Oh, so when you were when you were analyzing whether or not it was a good expenditure of taxpayer dollars to file the appeals, for one judgment is for just $1,000, and you're gonna pay like $20,000 for an appeal.
Absolutely.
Okay, and in your budget for this year, you do have $10,000 already for outside legal services, is that correct?
That's correct. But in one lawsuit, you named me personally, even though you didn't make any allegation that I did anything at all. The judge didn't dismiss me. Because of that, I can't represent the county in a case where I'm listed as a plaintiff. So we've already had to spend legal services, legal fees on that case for that reason. So that's why we've already spent a lot of that money.
So this is $20,000, so it would be a total of $30,000 in your budget for this year for other legal services, is that?
That's correct.
Am I understanding?
As of now, that's correct.
As of now, okay. Okay. Just a second.
Did you have another question at this time?
I'm looking at my notes, if you can give me just a minute here. I think that's all I have right now. Thank you very much for
I'd like to
explaining.
FOIA those notes.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to FOIA those notes. So I'll get them from you after the meeting.
Oh,
Thank
sure,
you.
I'll send them to you now.
The chair recognizes J.P. Rios Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the last time that we had a budget adjustment concerning legislation involving the county, I believe it was for, we were discussing a settlement. And during that time, we had some discussion about the cost-benefit analysis of, continuing on with the case or going through with the appeal versus having the settlement. And it was determined at that time that the settlement was the more prudent course of action. It looks like in this case, the county is deciding that the appeal is the course of action that it prefers to take. Can the county attorney address that in some way of why we're deciding on this course of action in order to, I think it's related to spending these funds.
So that was an action, that was a different type of case where there was an allegation there was a breach of contract. These are FOIA cases, and it is, in our opinion, it is important that we fight to protect the county on frivolous FOIA cases, which we believe both of these are. We disagree with the finding, we disagree with the judge's application of the law. Feel confident that the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court, however, wherever it goes, will agree with that. There are two different areas, and I won't really go into it. I know I'm not the attorney on it, but we feel like these are cases that are ripe to be appealed. I expect the Association of Counties to weigh in as well, as they agree with that. So different types of cases, different types of outcome. The settlement, in that case, that was a decision that this quorum court made. That wasn't a decision made by the county judge. So that came to you all. You all made the decision that you would prefer to settle the case than to move forward, which is your right as the client. And so that's what we did with that. But this isn't that type of case.
In this case, the quorum court isn't the client, you're saying? You're saying in that case, the quorum court was the client. In this case,
Right,
the quorum
the
court's not
settlement had to
client.
be approved by the quorum court. The settlement any funding had to be approved by the quorum court, so only you could approve that. And I guess in this case, you could deny the funding and request that it not be funded. And that would be one way to say we don't agree with moving forward with this.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
The chair recognizes J.P. Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment. In my capacity as JP, I don't ever want to be represented by someone who is the lowest bidder as a professional, specifically as an attorney. So that's my position. I just wanted to make it clear to everybody.
Thank you. The chair recognizes J.P. Koger.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In response to what Mr. Lester said, I made him a party to the lawsuit because the Employee Handbook, Section 14, says that upon receiving a FOIA request, a county employee shall immediately notify his or her supervisor.
What is your point of order?
Hold on.
What is the facts of who was named and why they were named pertinent to whether we're going to increase the funding for the county attorney or not? I don't understand.
Mr. Lester opened that door, and I'm wanting to explain that, that's why.
Well, the chair,
First off, the point of order is made to the chair.
the
not
chair
to-
is ruling that we move on. Was that the conclusion of your questions, J.P. Koger?
No, it wasn't. So I'm not sure what the chair just ruled, I'm sorry.
He ruled that you're out of order.
Okay, well, then I wish to appeal that ruling and finish what I was started to say, because like I said, Mr. Lester opened the door to it.
Okay, we will have a show of hands. If you are in favor of my ruling, that we'll move on to the next person to speak. Please, you cast a yes vote by raising your hand.
I'd like to call for a voice vote. Thank you.
How many hands were raised?
10.
How many opposed?
A voice vote is
I called for a voice vote.
First off. Like it normally does. That's an improper there's no motion there. You can't just call for a voice vote. There's a proper motion to be made. And it's up to the chair whether he honors that or if he does the hand, whatever he wants to do, but I'm just telling you that's an improper motion. You can call for a division of the assembly, but that's exactly what you've got here.
Given that the hand vote was convincing in one direction, we'll let that stand and move on in our discussion. The chair recognizes J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a motion and a second on the floor, and I recommend that we move forward on that with a vote. Thank you.
The question has been called, and at this point, we haven't had a discussion yet.
Well, the question's been called, it ends discussion, so you'd have to have a vote on that. It has to be a two-thirds vote.
What about public comment?
We'll do that after you vote on calling the question.
Okay. All those in favor of this,
Gotta have a second first.
did we have a second to that? Yeah. Okay. All those in favor of this ordinance passing it to the quorum court?
This is all those in favor of calling the question.
Okay.
Moving the previous question,
Okay.
ending debate.
All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
The chair rules that it passed. At this point, do we have any public comments concerning this ordinance? What's the time limit?
12 minutes, 3 minutes.
We have 12 minutes, which can be allotted to this, only 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and where you're from, and please proceed.
Thank you, sir. My name is Mac Mayfield. I live at 980 Rocky Lane, rural Fayetteville. I've followed this over the last, well, for a long time. FOIA and open meetings law have been violated by this body and by its committees several times, to the point where we got a ruling from Leslie Rutledge that if it's public money, it's a public meeting. So I am most thankful that J.P. Koger has pursued this, not only in her capacity as a justice of the peace, but as a private citizen. These two lawsuits they are done as far as the judges were concerned, open and shut cases. If the county wants to appeal that, I think that's largely a matter of vanity of the attorney. There seems to be a personal vendetta to keep this off the record. I think you all need to know that. As a taxpayer, I'm really upset about this. I don't want my money being used as salve for for a wounded ego. And that's what I feel this is. I've watched the snide comments. I've listened to Attorney Lester in a couple of meetings. Point of order, this is a comment. I'm sorry. This is my microphone for 2 minutes.
You are correct, sir, but we do ask that you keep your comments relegated to the chair of the committee this evening.
I have described them, and I'm looking at you, sir.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I feel that this is really an affront for a second reason as well. FOIA is a very important aspect of our law. If we can't know what's going on, and I hear lots of claims of transparency, but this is where the rubber meets the road. If a private citizen cannot find out what's going on in the halls of government, we're all in a lot of trouble. The county may wish to protect its prerogatives, and should, but this is not one of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome. If you would state your name again for the record and
Sure, Monique Jones, Fayetteville, Arkansas. It kind of makes me sad that we're going to use county money, and I took exactly what she said. Instead of doing a cost-benefit analysis, what is right for the citizens and our constituents of this county of how we use the funding of county funds to fight a $1,000 complaint that they've already lost over FOIA with, what was it, $17,000 plus another $10,000 we've already spent. This is county money. We have people that are homeless in our county. We have people that are food insecure, and we're gonna continue to spend money to fight over something that this just happened today, and I'm just sitting here looking that she read her notes, and then he said, I wanted to forward you those notes. The same thing that we're fighting over, then we're gonna use that and switch it around against our own county employees. I'm just confused. I'm confused as a citizen as how do we spend you're spending our county money. That's what I'm here for, to say, how are these individuals sitting here spending my money to fight over something that's the law? And it makes me sad that there's already been a ruling over that, and we're sitting here deciding if we're gonna continue to spend county money to fight another citizen when people are dying, going hungry, and homeless in this county. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Beth Koger. I live at 3661 East Embry Drive in Fayetteville. And the only thing I'd like to add to that for the court to consider is that during the second trial, Koger versus Deacons, Mr. Lester admitted in court that the county had violated FOIA when they had the closed meeting on February 7th of 2023. Thank you.
If there are no other comments, the committee can vote on whether to send this to the quorum court. We have a motion and a second to do that. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? Given we will have a indication by show of hands and count those as votes. At this point, if you are in favor of sending this ordinance to the quorum court, your point of order?
Thank you. This is for Attorney.
Just a second, please. Please proceed.
This is for Attorney Lester. When I call for a roll call vote, am I not entitled to a roll call vote, or has to be a show of hands? I'm not sure the people at home can see the hands raised, that's why I'm asking.
Your question has to be directed to the chair.
Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
will tell you that in preparing to run this committee meeting tonight, we did a little bit of homework. We can have a roll call vote. We can have a show of hands. the result is the same. You're on record both ways. We also felt that a show of hands helps those people at home who are watching in case we do have a microphone issue, which we have had some of that this evening. So to clarify, I lean towards a show of hands tonight. Everybody's on record just the same as with a roll call vote. And so that's the way the chair is leaning on this decision. Everyone still gets to participate in the same manner. Everyone's vote counts the same as opposed to what you're suggesting.
Well, that was my concern, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure that the people at home could tell how people
If
were
they're
voting.
viewing us, they can see who raised their hand and who does not. So we're not neglecting anybody's right to vote in a roll call manner, but this evening, that's the direction I'm leaning. And as I said, the result would be the same, whether you're giving your vote with a voice or with the show of a hand. It's still a public vote. So having said that, I want to ask those who are in favor of sending this to the quorum court, this particular ordinance, if you are in favor of that, if you're voting yes for that, please show by raising your hand. How many are opposed? There's 4. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is an ordinance recognizing $37.09 in unspent grant funds in the 3510 JDC Grant Fund. Do we have a motion? Okay, I think I have a motion from J.P. Pond, a second from, who was that? J.P. Lemming? Okay, thank you very much. Is there any discussion on this particular item from members of the committee? Seeing none, I'm going to ask if there's any public comments to be made relevant to this particular ordinance. If there's not, I'm going to ask the committee members, all those in favor of passing this to the quorum court, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Agenda item number 11, an ordinance recognizing additional revenue of $31,167 in the JDC Grant Fund. I have a motion from J.P. Pond. A second, was that J.P. Lemming again? Thank you. Is there any discussion from members of the committee? Are there any public comments to be made concerning this particular ordinance? Seeing none, we'll put that to a vote. All of those in favor of passing this on to the quorum court with a do pass recommendation, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 12, an ordinance anticipating additional revenue of $200,000 in the Wheeler Road Bridge Fund. Is there a committee member that has a motion concerning this particular ordinance? We have a motion for a do pass recommendation from J.P. Lyons. A second, was that J.P. Lemming? Is there any discussion from any members of the committee on this evening? Chair recognizes J.P. Rios Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering if anyone could give us some more details about this project.
As the chair this evening, I don't have additional information, but I don't know if the chief said he does not either. I don't know if anybody can provide some additional info. So the judge certainly could speak to that if he were here. Is there, of course, there's information in the packet which we've been able to review, but outside of that, I couldn't add anything to it. Are there other questions or discussion points to be made? J.P. Koger?
I was just going to say that maybe the chief of staff could address J.P. Rio Stafford's question.
Actually, he indicated he didn't have
Oh,
additional
I didn't hear
information.
that. I'm sorry. Okay.
Anyone else? Are there any public comments that need to be made pertaining to this particular ordinance? Seeing none, we will consider the motion. All those in favor of passing this to the quorum court with a due pass recommendation, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, it will be considered by the quorum court in the next meeting. Agenda item 13 is an ordinance amending the prosecuting attorney's budget for 2023. Do we have a motion from the committee concerning this ordinance? J.P. Lyons has a recommendation to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. I hear a second from J.P. Dean. Is there any discussion on the committee? Seeing none, are there any public comments concerning this particular ordinance? I apologize. The chair recognizes J.P. Hires.
Thanks. I was just wondering if we could hear a little bit about this before we move to a vote. Thank you.
Is that something you can speak to? Is that something you can speak to? The bridge?
Good evening. This is a request for a promotional increase. Our senior case coordinator recently left, and we promoted from within someone, one of our other case coordinators, and this is reflective of her new duties and her ability to do the job. So, but if anyone's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Are there other questions at this time?
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any public comments concerning this ordinance? Seeing none, we will put this to the vote of the committee. All who are in favor of the motion to pass it to the regular quorum court meeting with a due pass recommendation, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Agenda item 14, an ordinance amending the Grants Department budget and the county judge's budget for 2023. My understanding, and you can see there's an amount in the packet, it's a matter of moving money over, more than $36,000. Do we have a motion concerning this particular J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to pass this on to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
We have a motion from J.P. Ecke. I heard a second from J.P. Lyons. Is there discussion from committee members on this? J.P. Rio Stafford?
I'm going to try again. I'm not sure if we have the information about this, but do we know what position in the county or positions in the county judge's budget that this money is intended to go toward? Chief Johnson.
Chief can speak to that.
Thank you.
I got to push the right buttons here.
Oh, he had it.
There we go. It should be good now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Julie Harris, the current executive assistant in the judge's office, has advised us that she is going to be leaving that position. We do not have a date certain yet. We will have that is sometime in early October, we think. What this ordinance does is move money from the vacant grants assistance position, which we don't intend to fill, and it will allow us to hire somebody to replace Julie before Julie leaves so that we can do some training.
Okay.
And that's what we're looking to do. We're advertising for that position today.
All right, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions for the chief while he's here? Thank you so much. Any other discussion at this point? Are there public comments concerning this ordinance? Thank you. I know you stated your name earlier, but if you could do that again for the record.
Monique Jones, Fayetteville, Arkansas. My question is, you're moving 36,000 from one vacant position to an additional position. What would that then bring that additional position? And then how would the adverse impact the other employees in line with that position? I wonder if he has that information.
We don't have to answer. The protocol does not call for the public comments to be a Q&A. It's not that we're not concerned about your questions. We take them into consideration, but anybody speaking in public cannot have their questions answered directly at that time. Are there any other public comments to be made?
I'll finish since you can't respond. As an
The,
did I not have 2 minutes? Because I got up in like seconds. And you told me you couldn't answer, so I would just want to finish my comment since you can't respond. My comment is specific to what he just stated, is you were moving budgeted money from one position, from a vacant position to a field position, and my request is for the county to review that no one else is adversely impacted, to ensure that they are being paid fair and equitably across the board in those same and similar roles as in the budget. So I'm just asking for the county to make sure that due diligence is done, that no one person is paid at a higher rate in the same and similar position when you move another $36,000 to one position. That's all the comments I have.
Thank you for your comments. Those comments are so noted. Are there other public comments at this time? At this point, we'll ask that the committee vote. All of those in favor of sending this to the quorum court meeting with a due pass recommendation, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Point of information. Who made and seconded that motion?
JP Ecke made the motion. It was seconded by JP Lyons.
At this point, this concludes the portion of our agenda where we're considering ordinances. The chair will entertain any motions that the committee might have concerning forming a consent agenda. The chair recognizes J.P. Lyons.
Motion to form a consent agenda for the quorum court to include items 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
Would you repeat those again, please?
Sure, 7, 8, 10 through 14.
We have a motion to form a consent agenda from the items that were mentioned by J.P. Lyons. Is there a second? Second by J.P. Ecke. Any discussion from the committee concerning that proposed consent agenda?
These can just be moved to the consent agenda without a vote.
Okay. I appreciate everyone's patience tonight. I was informed that we don't necessarily have to have a vote on the consent agenda. That's been proposed and seconded, so it can be moved to the consent agenda for the quorum court meeting. And as always, I will remind the members of the committee that any JP can pull an item off of that consent agenda before the quorum court meeting. So we will proceed with that in mind. Agenda item number 15, we have a budget review from Collector Angela Wood. Thank you so much. I don't know if your mic's on yet or not, is it? Try that.
Okay, we are keeping the 100,000 for the remodel for the Springdale office in our budget. And we're only going up in the automation fund, $13,450, so it doesn't affect the general fund at all. So,
Are there any specific questions at this time from the committee? Thank you so much.
thanks.
Budget review from County Clerk Becky Llewellyn.
Good evening.
Welcome.
So for my 2024 budget, the main increases are going to be for overtime and part-time salaries because it's a presidential election year. So those did go up a little. Everything else pretty much stayed the same except for some software. And any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions from the committee? Okay. We're all mastering the button system tonight, aren't we? The chair recognizes J.P. Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Becky, for all you do. You do a great job. I saw the salaries for part-time, and one thing that I'm interested, not only in, and I'll just say this out loud, not only on your department, but every department, anytime we can get good, qualified, part-time people, we should be paying them a good salary, hourly salary, because many times they don't get the benefits, but yet a lot of times there are people who are highly qualified for those positions, and I see a discrepancy of what they get paid. And I'd like to see us bump those part-time salaries up some. I don't know who takes care of that, if you take care of that, or if that's done by HR, or who it does, but I just want to express my opinion about that. And I just happen to see the part-time salaries there on yours. And
Sure.
man, if you can get a part-time person who's experienced to come back to work, maybe a retiree, and we should do it, and we should thank them for it and reward them with a decent salary. Thank you.
Sure,
So
I'll just say
let me
my
speak on
two
your
are, I can't speak for everybody else's part-time people, but two of mine that I use, they're also poll workers, and they did get a raise recently from Election Commission, part-time.
Other questions? Okay. I had two, didn't I? I think J.P. Koger was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and maybe I just need some help with this, but I don't see the software that you mentioned, Becky. I mean,
So it's not in the general fund, it's in my automation fund. So it's in 3005.
okay.
I have nothing in general besides salaries.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't understand. Okay, thank you.
J.P. Rios Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I found that, and it's on a different sheet, and it looks like on there. Is that the software to help make those searchable?
That's included, but
Okay.
I also have, ES&S with our
Yeah.
poll books and election software. Tracy Smith does our marriage, Data Scout with our One Map, so there's several, but it is included, yes, it's in the works.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you do and that your office does. I always enjoy interacting, with your staff, especially when I come and do weddings for couples and things like that. And thanks for doing a good job.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Circuit Clerk Kyle Sylvester.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sure this is the highlight of the year, as usual. My office has two budgets. I've got the 1,000, the general budget. For 2024, there is no increase. The only one that I expected, I think there might be like a $200 increase in the fire and extended coverage, but I think that usually doesn't play out until later on in 2024. So that number could change. Oh, sorry. Is that better? Yes. Okay. As far as the recorder's cost budget goes, I've been able to look at the spending patterns for this year. I've checked with a lot of my vendors, anticipating increased costs for services for next year. Some of those have gone down, some have gone up. On the overall, my total recorder's cost budget increase outside of salaries would increase, according to my calculations, $57,150. We do have an enormous real estate project going on that will take the upcoming year and the one following. And so I have increased my 3102, my software support and maintenance agreement budget line item by $50,000. And that's going to help cover the cost of developing our project. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Questions from the committee? J.P. Koger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm having a little trouble hearing tonight, I guess, but when you said project, to do something about a project, is that what you said?
Yes, we've got a software project going on in our real estate department that is going to add security and some additional features, better searchability for our online records, and we're also, I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail just yet, but we have discovered that any type of out-of-the-box solution that might be available for increased security, security for storage, searchability is just not on the market for what we want at Washington County, because we want it to integrate with our assessor department and also our tax collector department. So all those three offices right there integrate anyway. All the information that comes into my office goes to the assessor's office, that goes to the tax collector's office. We're looking for something that can streamline all of the processes to make it in real time. When a document is recorded in my office, then all of that information in real time plugs that information into those two other offices so that it's available faster and in one spot. And so that's what we are striving to do. We are still in the beginnings of that project. And like I said, it's going to take a couple of years. But I think the end result is going to be phenomenal, and this is something that I'm not necessarily a right here, right now kind of administrator. I'm looking down the road, and this is 30, 50 years down the road, going to benefit Washington County and the citizens.
That sounds awesome, and I can see how that would be helpful. I'm just curious, how are all the deed records from Washington County, are they online now, like even from the 1900s or 1800s?
They are not. That's another part. That's another enormous project that what I want to do is make sure that we have the technical ability to house all that information. So we want to get we want to get the foundation built, and then we will be able to, as funds allow, because being able to scan and index old records like that is very, very costly. We're talking in the millions of dollars as far as the preservation, restoration, scanning, indexing of those records. We have a lot of those available online currently. We do have a lot of those indexed and digitized that go back towards, the early 1900s. But as far as stuff that's still in archives and the very, very old, fragile books, that's going to be a very lengthy project. And I can only handle so many projects at one time.
Okay, thank you very much. You've answered my question.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Coroner Roger Morris. Good evening.
Evening. As you can tell, I'm blind too. All right, there is some increases on my budget, but what I've done, like I do every year, I try to stay within my budget, work through my budget. I used to use part-timers, so I had 17,000 in there, so I dropped that this year to cover my new raises in my budget, because we've had to raise general supplies, because now with all the new laws coming down from the state on opioids and drugs, we are having to do urinalysis on all of our cases, and so we're looking at, we're due about 3,000 a year. And if they pop positive, 90% of them is going to go to Little Rock, which is increasing our body bag supplies. Okay, so we're going to have to load up there. And one reason I took that away from part-time and I put more down there in contract labor was because every time we hired a part-timer, they wind up getting, getting enough hours that they wind up getting our benefits. So with our full-time staff, we're able to go ourselves some. So by doing contract labor, we're going to be able to save by not using our part-timers that would wind up getting county benefits, if that makes any sense. Okay. Now, also, you don't see capital expenditures on there, all right? Because some of y'all remember, some of you were here, some of you were not. When I came last year, it was to replace all my vehicles. And y'all asked me, well, let's do 2 at a time instead of all of them. I agree with that. But instead, I'm going to do 1 at a time, okay? So I don't put money in there because I've got in with an individual that does demos, and he's getting my colors, he dresses them out. So not only am I getting a vehicle, I'm getting $10,000 worth of what we're going to have to put on there anyway for free. So I don't put it in there because I'm not guaranteed I'm going to get that vehicle until later on through the year. So why not leave that $60,000 in general fund to draw interest instead of in my funds? So that's the way I look at it, because that vehicle may not show up, so why should I be sitting on $60,000? See what I'm saying? And this vehicle did come available, so I'll be up next month to work on that. But anyway, that's where I am. My budget basically went up about $7,000 by moving my $17,000 to spread it out. Yes, sir.
J.P. Lemming.
Thank you, Chair. You said you was gonna load up on the body bags. Are we still using the $300 or $400 ones, or what are we using nowadays?
We're using $74 ones.
That's good. That's good. How many employees you have now?
I have 4.
4? How many vehicles you have now?
How many vehicles I have now? With the donation of 1, I've got 5, counting the one I'm driving.
5.
How many of them's got rails in them
Rails,
for the bodies?
4.
4. Okay.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I've got 3 vehicles with rails, and in my vehicles, I've got 4.
Okay. So the 5th vehicle is,
5th vehicle is our transport vehicle from here to Little Rock. We try to keep it only a road, you know, because we don't
it
want.
has rails in it too, though?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just seeing there's one short there with, didn't all of them have rails in them?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions? And I'm sorry, you may have had more that you wanted to share with us too.
Oh, no, I'm good. Well, in fact, I'm actually working on 2 things. One of them's with the representatives on this drug issue, this opioid thing. And if it works out, we could possibly start bringing some money back into the general fund, and it has to do with transportation. Right now, when they pass these laws, and it's good laws, I mean, I understand why they did, but all the money stops right here at the Little Rock level, like crime lab and the Capitol. Well, what they don't understand is the trickle-down effect. You know, what it causes my office, what it causes our taxpayers. You know, so they're going to get all the funds from the benefits or from the grants, and per head they get to go to the crime lab on opioids. They're getting additional funds. We're not. So I'm trying to talk to some individuals about letting us do the transportation and letting them pay us. And hopefully we can maybe work something out and make a little money on the side.
J.P. Lemming?
Thank you, Chair. Roger, from January to now, approximately how many call-outs have you had?
Oh, I couldn't give you that information right here. I know we're over 2,000 something.
2,000 transports, calls, pickups?
Now, actual pickup itself, I'd have to look, but because we get called on every death, whether it's hospice, hospital, you name it.
Do you do Madison County or just all Washington County?
Just all Washington
That's what I
County.
thought. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? Sir, did that conclude your remarks too?
Yes, sir, and I appreciate it.
I didn't mean to cut you off if I was, but.
No, you're fine.
Seeing no further questions, we thank you very much for that
Thank you.
report. We have Circuit Court Division 2 Judge John Threet.
Would I be able to tell JP Hires that my daughter Anna got a job teaching middle school at J.L. Kelly in writing? Would I be able to tell? If not, I won't.
Sounds like you
That's
can.
fine. But she taught her sociology at FHS, so I was just going to let her know that. But if
Great
that's
news.
inappropriate, I won't do that. This is not near the masterpiece it was last year because I have a $235 increase in software for my court reporter. Other than that, everything's the same. Anything else? Any other questions?
Any questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was your job.
You did fine.
Is that it?
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
At this point, we will have public comments that may be directed towards the chair that the committee may want to hear. And as before, we have 12 minutes allotted for this, only 3 minutes per individual. Do we have any public comments at this time? Seeing none, we are adjourned.